I've got a finer pair of tweezers here to see if they'll allow me to manipulate that a bit better. It must be, there we go, that's it, wriggled off. It must be just slightly misshapen to lock on as firmly as that. Well, these are the components here that are going through the ultrasonic cleaner. That's mostly it. I don't know whether I can slide out this whole front section with that chrome trim on or not. I might be able to. I'm going to attempt that, because if I don't have to remove those nameplates, I'll be much happier. It's a long time since I've done one of these. I see far more retinas than retinettes. And when I'm doing retinettes, it's far more likely I'll be doing a Retinette 1A than any other model. That looks like that's going to come out. Good. Good. And take out that baffle. Good, that gives me complete and free access to this, because this plate in particular I want off to clean. I'll have to remember that for next time, that I do not need to remove those nameplates. I certainly know I've done it in the past, probably for no good reason. Now these two pieces, they can go in the cleaner. This can all stay together as a piece. And at this stage, the camera is pretty much stripped down. There's my shutter and its retaining ring. There's the body components. Everything for the ultrasonic cleaner can go in, and then I can start cleaning up the body castings and getting ready to put things back together after that. And the shutter I'll do last of all. Well, I'm cleaning up the body. I've got it all cleaned out, all the dust and dirt and rubbish off it. I don't particularly like the look of those ice bumps on the back, so I want to peel that leatherette off. Now, that's always a little bit fraught. I can see that it's actually cracked at a couple of points there. So I want to see if I can get under it at the ends and then start lifting the leatherette up. You've got to peel it from the ends obviously, but the hard part is getting it off around the corners, around the edges. Just sliding the point of my tweezers down under it at this point, seeing if I can get that loose. It seems to be stuck right here. That's not good. The other end, I've got that a little bit looser. It's more important even to get the leatherette off the back here in one piece than it is on the base of the camera, because you know how often do people study the base of a camera? Well, I can get up around this the edge here on the back, it'll be easier. I think that adhesive might soften with a bit of naphtha, so I'm going to run a few drops down inside there and see if that makes any difference. Sometimes it softens the adhesive well, other times it doesn't make any difference at all. Sometimes it just has the effect of lubricating the scalpel blade so that it'll slide under easily. That's lifting that leatherette off nicely. So a little bit of naphtha in this case is a good thing. You have to be a bit cautious about anything to do with any sort of solvent and plastic materials like leatherette, because some solvents will damage the leatherette completely, just ruin it. Okay, right, I'm well past the edge now, and the leatherette on the flat piece of the back is not normally as stuck as well. That naphtha immediately softens that adhesive. It must be pretty near failing. Yeah, I'm peeling that off, but really that's pushing your luck a bit far with things like this. If there was a crack in that leatherette, it could tear if you do things like that. So I've got to be a bit more cautious. Now it's stuck at this end. I noticed that when I was trying to work up that outside edge. Yeah, it's stuck really well right here. And the leatherette's, there's a crack in that Zeiss bump right there, so I've got to be a bit cautious about this. Okay, it's all but off now. And here I'm using my scalpel more as a lever than anything else. I'm just very gently peeling that leatherette up. That's it, it's off. Okay, so all this stuff, these light patches, that's corrosion. That's corrosion products from the back of the camera. All of that needs to be scraped off, and that's where all the bumps will be. Each of these patches will correspond to bumps on the leatherette. So I've got to clean all that. And I've got to clean this camera back. This is a mixture of adhesive and corrosion, like probably salts of aluminium probably. But all of this I want off. Here I'm just using the back edge of my scalpel to scrape that off. And I'm attempting to get all the rubbish off without scraping into the aluminium itself, which of course is quite soft. But it's worth my while to physically scrape this stuff off than rely on solvents to do it, because solvents might damage the paint around the edges, or where I've left other leatherettes on the camera. Might not want the solvents I use to get this all clean from damaging these leatherettes, for example. I'm undecided as to whether I need to remove those patches. Quite apart from the lumps and the bumps that this old failed adhesive is causing, or would cause on the leatherettes if I just put the leatherettes back, it would also cause the new adhesive to fail to stick properly. So it'd be setting up problems for the future. Mind you, I suppose the camera's about 60 years old, and who knows whether anyone would be interested in another 30 years. This could long since have gone to the landfill by then. There's a fair bit of corrosion right at that corner. That's where that leatherette was stuck particularly well. And that's where there was that crack in the leatherette over one of the bumps, which was just about at that point, I think. Anywhere you see dull points in the finish of the aluminium, typically that's where there was corrosion. Well, that's quite good now. The rest of that I can clean off with solvent. And first I'll try using just naphtha. We know that that lifted the adhesive quite well, so I'll try and see if that'll remove that residue. It may do. It may be that I've got to use something else a bit more energetic. But it's always worth trying the mildest solvents first. Move to something a bit more aggressive if you need to. That's certainly cleaning up, it's getting rid of the bulk of it. I'll just carry on with that, get it as clean as I can, and then review whether I need to finish that up with a different solvent. Well, that's it all clean. You can see the dull patches on there. Typically that'll be where corrosion was. The brighter patches is where it wasn't. I'm going to get these leatherettes off the front now to do exactly the same job. They're the last leatherettes on here, and I might just as well have the lot off, I think. I'll see if I can get under them. These ones are certainly stuck better than the others. But that naphtha is certainly just softening that adhesive right up. The aluminium for the casting for the camera body will of course be a slightly different alloy to whatever the sheet metal was that was used for making the camera back, and so that they don't tend to corrode in quite the same way, and you may find that there's corrosion on the back but none on the body, or the other way around. This is certainly stuck much firmer than the leatherette on the camera back was, or the base for that matter. But it looks like they're going to come off in one piece, which is the main thing. When you're doing a job like this, which you could say was elective surgery, I suppose, the camera's not going to function any better for the sake of having the leatherettes removed, Zeiss bumps cleaned away and the leatherettes put back. But it might just look marginally prettier. And in a case like that, you had best err on the side of caution, because if you make a mess of it and break the leatherette, then you're in a worse situation than you started off with. You've created a problem where you didn't actually have one. So in cases like that, you need to exercise a certain amount of discretion. Don't get over optimistic, don't get over ambitious. If there's a serious problem and you stand a very good chance of remedying that problem with minimal risk, then the risk is worth taking. If there is a very minor problem and the risk of creating a serious problem is very high, you've got to be a lot braver. You've got to be a real gambler to get into that sort of stuff. I've got years of experience at this, and I start on a process like this. Sometimes you start on it and you have to turn back. You get to a point where you decide, no, this is not coming away as easily as I expected. The leatherette, perhaps the leatherette's more fragile than I thought it would be, and that the best course of action would be to stop right here, and you might stop right here, clean out under the leatherette as best you can and glue it back down. Sometimes that's just what you have to do. Fortunate in this case, the leatherettes are in very good condition. They're quite pliable. They're quite solid, and it means that I could get under there. And the leather, well, the adhesive, the other aspect was that the adhesive softened easily with naphtha and let go. If it was stuck very firmly and wouldn't let go, it wouldn't be a goer. You can see here now, all these light patches, all these yellowish light patches here, that's corrosion on the camera body. You can see it flaking away there. All of that needs to come off. Again, I'm just using the back edge of the scalpel here to scrape that at a very low angle. I'm not wanting to scour into the aluminium casting at all, and being cautious around the painted edges. But I do want that rubbish off there. With luck, I can get the leatherettes to glue back on, minus their Zeiss bumps. Sometimes you just cannot get the leatherettes to lie down completely flat again. That where they've been stretched into bumps by the corrosion from underneath, they are just permanently stretched and do not want to lie flat again afterwards. Other times you find that yes, they will lie flat. Sometimes if you warm the leatherette up, once you've glued it back in place, warm it up with a hairdryer, you find that you can massage the bumps down and they'll stay gone. That's good. I'll do that. Finished cleaning that, finish this side, and get it all as clean as this hopefully. Alright, that's all clean, ready to go. The final solution for cleaning it was this stuff, CRC Heavy Duty Lectraclean. You don't want to let this stuff get on leatherettes, it tends to make a mess of them, but it's a bit more aggressive than the Naphtha, and was certainly the answer at getting the remains of that adhesive off. Now I've got nice smooth surfaces on the back, on the front, and on the camera base. So this is all ready for rebuilding. Of course I've got to clean up my leatherettes. This is the state of the leatherette from the back of the camera. I haven't done anything to that yet. The leatherette from the base I've already cleaned. But this, I can see big lumps and bumps in here, and all of that rubbish I'll have to scrape out. I can't afford to wipe the inside of the leatherette here with that CRC solvent. It would just damage it. So I've got to scrape off all the lumps and bumps. From this side, of course, they're pits filled with corrosion products. So I've got to sort of pick that out so that the leatherettes will hopefully go back and lie flat. And as for the old adhesive and so forth, if I scrape my scalpel across it carefully like that, I'll scrape away that rubbish. I will wipe the inside of this with some naphtha. I know that I can get away with that without doing any harm. But I wouldn't soak them in naphtha for any length of time. This will be the corner where the leatherette was most difficult to remove. It's a bit lumpy looking there. You have to be particularly careful when you're working close to the edge of leatherettes, particularly if they're a bit dry and fragile. You know, this sort of action can quite easily just peel a big piece of leatherette away, cause it to break off, which means then you've got a, in the best case, you've got a join that you may need to disguise afterwards. That should be fine. I'll give that a wipe down with some naphtha. Get rid of all that loose rubbish. This has got quite a greasy feel to it, the leatherettes. That'll be the breakdown products from the failed adhesive and possibly skin oils that have soaked through the leatherette from handling. And all of that greasiness would stop adhesive from sticking to it properly and preventing it from going back neatly. The outside surface here, I've just got a few specks of rubbish on it. They should go afterwards. Here, there's the bumps. You can see the bumps there quite clearly. Those ice bumps are right on the edge. And they're scattered fairly generally all the way across the back of that leatherette. I'm pretty confident that I'll get those to go away and I won't have a problem with it. The front panels weren't so bad. These were more just a case of taking them off and cleaning them for the sake of completeness. If there had been no problem on the back of the camera, I certainly would have been delving into these. They didn't present enough of a cosmetic problem in themselves for me to do anything with them. They were certainly stuck down well enough that they were in no danger of falling off either. But for the sake of completeness, it was worth taking them off. I'll just clean these things up too now.